Okay, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers, a team that I have been critical over the years, and it's not just because I'm a Tampa Bay fan. It might be just because I'm a Tampa Bay fan, but I don't think so. I think it was more because I thought that they weren't always making great moves, and I have to say, I like a lot of what they did here. Doesn't mean every pick is the pick I would have made, but ultimately, I think this was a pretty strong draft class, and a class I could definitely see some people loving. So, first, let's start off with I think the big slam dunk, which was Ted McMillan. First, I got to explain the chart you see next to me. This is from left to right. You're going to see the number in which they pick they were selected on. So Ted McMillan was selected 8th. Then you have the name, the position, and finally where they ranked on the consensus big board. McMillan was projected 10th. He goes 8, but they just needed help for Bryce Young. And listen, I don't think you should always spend a top 10 pick on need. In fact, I usually don't think you should do that. But you're trying to develop your young quarterback. What's the goal of Carolina right now? I think it's all about developing Bryce Young, who looked great once he came back from being benched last year, in my opinion. But they don't have just the firepower on the outside to really see what he can do. With someone like McMillan, this gives you potentially that firepower. So I'm all aboard on this selection. Sure, you would have loved to use a pick to help with defense, but they did. They just didn't use it in the first round. Defense is about depth. Sometimes offense is about stars. So use the pick that you can get a star on offense. It makes sense to me. But they did not neglect defense. In fact, you see there are a lot of defensive picks on this list, including their next two, both going edge rusher. First, Nick Scornton, a guy who was projected to go 41st, ends up going 51st. So, hey, get a 10 spot jump there. Anytime you can be on the right side of that, it's usually a good thing. I will say he wasn't my favorite prospect just because he's, a 285-pound edge rusher. You don't have great analytics with him. I don't know what he is, quite frankly, and I'm worried he is a tweener. Where are you going to put him? How are you going to make this work? He's not quite big enough to be interior, not quite fast enough to be an edge rusher, although he does move great for his weight. There is just a bit of projection here. And so because of that, what are we going to use with what's going to happen with Scornton? That being said, I think it's good value. There were some people talking about him as a potential first. That would have been too much for me. But I think at 51, this is a good pick. I think it's the right time for a move like this. The next player they selected was also an edge. This was at 77. He was projected to go 62nd. This is Princey U. Still never learned how to pronounce his name, and I apologize for that. But he is someone who his pass rush numbers, the analytics, the win rate, all that stuff was great. And largely how he did that was with his good hands and with his speed. Here is the potential issue with him, and I think why he fell maybe out of the first round and out of the second round ultimately is he is someone who relies on speed a lot. He is not a run defender really at all, and is someone who's also a bit of a one-year wonder. I think the question is, what are you getting out of him? Are you getting more than 500 snaps out of him? I don't think so. That being said, again, he's someone who there were some people talking about maybe early second. That would have been too high for me. But where you're getting him, he should be a pretty good player for what he is, right? Don't expect him to become TJ Watt. That's not what you're expecting here with him. But ultimately, for a third-round pick, just getting a guy who could be somewhat valuable, in my opinion, is totally worth this pick. So I think it's it's a good pick for where they got him. Some people will say it's a great pick for where they got him. Depends on your evaluation, but even me, I say it's still a really good one. So you then have Trevor Etienne, who, if that name sounds familiar, yes, that is Travis Etienne's younger brother, who most people feel like he is, is he a 3-down bell cow back like you saw from Travis? Well, again, we haven't really seen that from Travis in the NFL either. But Trevor Etienne is someone who has floated around 300 to 400 snaps every year, but has played really well. I mean, he has really good, speed, really good quickness, that kind of thing. Might also be able to, you might be able to get more out of him when you are in a situation where you just see what he can do. Try to develop him a little bit. From Georgia, who they don't really need some of this stuff. So, I think he's someone who could be interesting. Next up is the Ohio State safety, Lathan Ransom, who is, at the safety position is a player who, what people like about him is how physical he plays for a safety, 210, but he can hit hard. I do think that there is something where he might not be the most elite athlete in the world, but ultimately was a pretty good player in college. And again, here's the thing where while people fall in love with athletes, sometimes you just got to get a pretty good player, and that's what I could certainly see him being. They then selected Cam Jackson, also known as Cameron Jackson, depending on where you look at and where it's announced and everything. But just a big, interior defensive lineman listed at 340. So, a big body to put on the inside on running plays. I don't know if you're expecting him to be anything more than that. He isn't an elite technician, although it was pretty good his last year at Florida. But again, probably a 300 snap guy who you're not getting a ton out of. It's a reach according to consensus big board, but ultimately this is just simply like, what do you expect out of this? If you're going into this expecting him to be a star player, well, that's probably not what's going to happen, but it's pick 140 here. He should be someone that can at least help the team out. And again, for a team that needs to improve their defensive line, hey, you put him next to Derek Brown, all of a sudden, that looks like it's difficult to run against. You can't double team both of those guys, and you don't want to leave Derek Brown one-on-one, but now you got to have someone try to block a 340-pound guy one-on-one. That's a lot to ask for. So, yeah, that's ultimately a move that I like as well. Then you have, 2 picks left on this draft class. At pick 163, they went with Mitchell Evans, the tight end out of Notre Dame, who was someone who was looking like he could develop into a real NFL, prospect after 2023. He was PFF's 11th highest graded player there, but ultimately kind of had a bit of a down year, and maybe you hope that you can kind of figure out how to fix that, but you never love when someone kind of goes up and then goes down. It's never a great sign, but ultimately, should be able to be a solid blocking tight end who can, again, add value. I think that there's some people who maybe you could argue have higher upside, and there always is the dilemma at pick 163. Do you draft someone who has starting potential, or do you just draft someone who will help the team? They decided to go with someone who will help the team. And finally, they decide to go with a Colorado wide receiver. Hey, I guess they got to be like Jacksonville, getting an ETN brother and also getting a Colorado wide receiver. Although this one, not exactly, not exactly Travis Hunter here. For one thing, 5'10", 170. So I guess that's similar to Travis Hunter. Although Hunter makes Horn makes Hunter look big. So that's not ideal. Quite frankly, I wonder if you're getting much other than a special teams player for him. Maybe, we'll see, but to me, usually wide receivers in the 200s, you're looking at special teams right here. Was projected to go. He was projected to be drafted, was drafted, so, congratulations to him. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the Panthers draft. Yeah, as a whole, a lot of players who should just play. And ultimately, out of these, 8 picks, if you get 6 contributors out of it and 1 star, that's a pretty great draft, I would say. And there's potential for even more than that. So yeah, honestly, a draft I really thought was very impressive by the Carolina Panthers. But that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.